Welcome. I hope that everybody is relaxed so we can start the actual stream. Give me a second to prep my stuff. Any questions before I begin? Gotta make it a bit professional, right? Gotta make it have a very nice and relaxing place to come to and learn some JavaScript. JavaScript is relaxing. It's just like typing some code, testing it out, seeing if it works. It's amazing. It's amazing. All right. Everybody ready? Good. So, what we are going to talk about today is the last two parts. Yep. So this should be better, of course. I think my voice is tired. I'm going to see if I can up it a bit. Hey. Right now, testing. Better. Upping the gain. Good. JavaScript ASMR. I think that's a niche market. I would subscribe to it though, but so up until now we have worked with a full stack, or like worked towards a full stack JavaScript application, and today there is actually the milestone 2 is going to launch. So it's going to I will explain it after the whole session, so at the end I will explain that you will have to make a prototype which is a full stack web application. So again, it is the code you are going to use as a baseline for your project. And now you can focus on just making it work data-wise, and then later you can plug in your own stuff on it. All right. So, full stack JavaScript. Who in chat can tell me what 3 components does a full stack JavaScript consist of? What 3 components does a JavaScript site consist of? And I saw some chat and some funny stuff in the chat, so I know everybody's awake. So I want to see some answers. Let's go. Frontend, backend, and database. Yes, it's not database server. It's if there is one server, then it's basically the backend. But yeah, so three parts: frontend, backend, and a database. Now we have been working again with frontend, of course, a couple of weeks ago. Last week we saw the basics of Node. We have not created a server yet, but we saw the language and the types we are going to use for that part. Now, how are we, or what are we going to do with Express then? Like, what is our backend? Well, our backend is going to be a REST API. Our backend is basically going to be just the same as OMDB, which you have used before, JSON placeholder, which you have used before, a REST API to give data back and process data. So Express is going to help us with that. Express is a minimal and flexible Node.js web application framework. That's a mouthful in the beginning. Now, 2 words I like in here: minimal and flexible. Minimal, of course, less code, more efficiency. That's what I like about minimal. With very easy code, easy to read code, we can do a lot. Flexible, you can go lots of ways out of it. Lots of ways in the sense that you can do it a full authorized API. You can do a full-blown web server stuff. But of course, we're going to make a web server, a REST API, which is a web server in some case. Now, what is a web server? Let's start with that. A web server hosts a website in the most common sense of a web server name. We are not going to make a web server that hosts a website. We are going to host an API, an asynchronous programming interface, where we are going to call a route, tell us what to do, and it's going to give us data back. That's the core concept. Now, a web server, of course, handles the same way. If you go to www.lofihiphopbeats.com or javascriptasmr.com, then you're using a domain that connects to an IP, and that IP is somewhere attached to a physical machine. And that physical machine, that's the server that hosts the website. Now, of course, the hardware itself, even if it's in the cloud, it's hosted somewhere on some piece of hardware. In what form today is a bit too complex to explain, but still, the hardware itself has web server software, and it has all the source files for that site. For example, the JavaScript ASMR website will have audio files, will have an HTML file and CSS to show you those audio files, and some JavaScript to play those audio files. So all the resources needed for that website are on there. That's the source files. Of course, around that, because the files are just located on a hard drive, how does that data get to the end user? If I go to the website, I get the HTML page back. What takes care of that? What takes care that after I press enter on my URL in my browser, that I get back something? Well, that's the HTTP server. The HTTP server handles the HTTP requests, and that's just what we do. HTTP basically makes a request. It's asynchronous. It's stateless, and it is connectionless. It doesn't make a connection. If you press enter on a website, you're just going to ping that website and say, hey, I want your site. It's not going to make a connection, okay? So that HTTP request is going to give you back all the data that you need. That's the HTTP server's job. You can have a file server on there, which just an FTP server for those who already used FileZilla. That's what an FTP server does. If you don't know what FileZilla is, Google it. It's a client to interact with FTP servers, which is basically just access to a hard drive, and only that hard drive on a remote place, and some software above it. File server. Database, of course, persisting data. You're going to save your data. This year, we're going to work with cloud database instead of a local database, which should make it a bit easier to connect and to have the uptime ready. Databases are coming. I will start explaining around 4:30, around then. Application server. Sometimes for PHP servers, for example, you have a server that updates the files before sending it back. So for example, if you send back an HTML file with specific scripting language in it, for example, PHP, the application server is going to convert that to a regular plain HTML that your browser can read. Now, the request flow, again, I told it to group A, to group B, same for you. There is a theoretical question in the theoretic exam for this course that asks you, explain to me what a full stack JavaScript website is, and use an example to explain to me how the data is transported in between the different components. So of course, the three components, you've already said it: front-end, back-end, database. And then this is basically a request flow, but you need to use your own example, of course. I need to see that in your own words, you can explain how the data flows from front to database and back. So you have a login request, you click on the button, that data goes to your, or like that fetch request goes to your backend. The backend handles the request, as in it executes something, like it's going to check the data in a database to see if you have the correct credentials. And then the backend sends back, hey, you're good to go, your credentials are okay. The frontend will catch that message in an asynchronous way, of course, fetch then, for example, or with a wait. And then it will continue to the profile page, for example. All right. So that is the request flow in between those components. A very abstract thing, but what I just want to make clear with this, and that's still something that lots of people will struggle after today, is that your frontend and your backend are two separate code bases, are two separate folders. If I take one away, the other ones should still work. Maybe in the frontend I will adjust some URLs, but still it should not be dependent on files that are located in the same folder. So backend and frontend, different pieces of code. Of course, the backend server, we are going to make that. We're going to be handling the requests. Et voilà. We're going to be handling the requests. We're going to redirect to different pieces of code. What does that mean? If I call a specific route that says get user or get book, then I'm going to execute different code for that specific route, because I'm going to be getting books on the one hand and users on the other hand. I'm going to format the response. Do I only give back the name? Do I give back a full JSON object? Do I give back an HTML page? And then I'm going to send it back. Now, Express will do this for you and then some more. So this is the site for Express, and I will now have 50 slides going through the tutorial. Just kidding, we're just going to get started with the demo. So again, you learn by doing. So we are going to actually do it and make the web server. Bamboozled. Sure do, baby. All right, Express. We're going to go to the site. Express.live. Nope. Express.js. So, again, I see this and I know a couple of things. This is Node software. It's a package because I have to install it with NPM. So that means I need an NPM project. I already know that before looking at anything in the getting started, but I will follow the getting started. So, all right. Good. We have a clean folder, Express demo, and it will ask you like, I know a lot of people will just go, okay, I type this, I type this, I type this, I type this, I type this. Okay, next. No, don't do that. Read. You learn to read for a reason. Okay. So mkdir makes a folder. Ta-da! mkdir. So it makes a folder and then you're going to be working in that. I'm not going to be using that folder. Why? Because I have my demo folder, Express demo. All right. And then of course, cd, change directory into that folder. This just means that you have to be in the correct folder to do your project. npm init, we saw that last time. Npm init makes a package.json, asks you lots of files. I'm going to go a bit faster and use -y, and that will create a default file for me, a default package.json file. You can see it in here. All right, perfect. Entry point, we don't need that. It's just in the setup. You can add a different file. I don't need it, but you are going to create an app.js file. App.js. And we are ready to go. Now, of course, we have an NPM project. Now we're going to start with Express. You need to enter the npm install Express. Now, from npm 5 version 5 and onwards, we do not need to add save anymore, because save before version 5 needed to be added, so the dependency is actually added in the package.json file, which we need, of course. But from 5 and onward, and we are on 6.14 I think, we don't need it. It will automatically npm install Express. It will automatically be added in the package.json file, as you will see here. So we have the package. Everything is in the node modules. Perfect. Okay, we can go to the hello world. Let's go. Oh, there's code. Okay, copy paste. Done. No, again, no. Bad. Don't do this. Read and see what it does. First of all, semicolons are missing. It's dirty code. Dirty code. I do not want that. And you're going to run it locally. So this is a node file. You know that by calling node and then the actual file, you run that file. Okay. I'm going to go over the basics of this. Mainly, require Express. I'm going to get the Express package from node modules. Then I'm going to call that function, which is just something that Express does. Express just exports one function called Express, and it will give you an app object with all the functionalities you need. A port, interesting. Port. Say that 5 people of you work on the same physical server, or even the same laptop. Let's say the same laptop to make it easier to understand. The same physical machine. One person is going to run a server on a specific port. I am now running a server on port 3000. Localhost means it's this PC. This PC has 2 ways of yeah, okay. It's different. So localhost, if you don't enter anything, do I have? Localhost, if you enter something, you default to port 80 automatically. So there is a website running on my PC on port 80, which is something for a different course. If I go to port with a colon to port 3000, I will get hello world back. If that other person, I'm just going to open another terminal. Again, it's still running here. If I go to another terminal and I go to, of course, if I want to run it again, you're going to get a very useful error, as in address already in use. And which address? 3000. If I had a different port, I can run multiple sites on my PC or multiple servers on my PC. It's the same basically as on 3000, I'm running this app.js file, and on port 80, I'm running a completely different PHP project. It's in a different server, it's stuff like that. Don't be worried about that. My apologies. So we have our server, it's running. So as you can see, 2 things here. It will listen to the to the route of root. This is the root, so localhost 3000 without any addendum, hello world. But I can also do test. I need to reboot my server, as in the sense that Control-C, break it, fix it, run it. So again, I am now accessing a different route. Test, in this case. What can I do with test? I can do more things with test. I can let user standard JavaScript. I'm going to add a name. And I'm going to add an age. All right. And I'm going to send that user back. Now, the response, we have a request and we have a response. If I press enter, this comes in as the request. All the info is in request. It's a giant object. In the documentation, you will find more information on that. The response is the one we send back. So there are functions on respond that I can use. Namely, the first one, JSON, which is one that I want. And I'm going to send back the user as a JSON file. So if I now, again, reboot my server and press enter, I get the raw data of that object. That's the basic principles of my API. Now, of course, this is the same as JSON placeholder. So you know this site, I've been using this for my exercises as well. So if someone does a fetch to JSON placeholder, then they get back data. That's the basic gist of what a REST API is. You have multiple things as well. So give me all the photos, and you have all the photos. Okay. OMDB, just the same. Now, to make it clear that what we are using doesn't have anything to do with a website, we are not going to be using our website to test these routes. We're going to be using a very handy tool called Postman. Now, first things first, it's very frustrating to start coding, make mistakes, of course, and then keep resetting the server. It's a bit too much of a hassle. So I'm going to be using NodeMon. NodeMon is just a utility that monitors changes in your code and restarts the server for you. So you're going to be using this command. If you're a Mac user, you use sudo before it because Apple doesn't allow you to do something globally because it doesn't trust you. And you can use NodeMon after that. For Windows users, there are some issues with some PCs. Ask me what the issue is and I will help you. Okay. Now, if I installed NodeMon, then I can do this. Instead of node app.js, I can do NodeMon app.js. And look now. Oh, you know what? I'm going to clear it first so it's more clear. NodeMon app.js. Enter. And you will see that it has started my server just like before. But if I change my age, it updated, as you can see. This is because I have autosave on. And the moment I start typing, I don't do anything. I don't save. I just one hit and it will automatically refresh. So, and then of course, if I refresh this, I have 51, which is about how I feel right now. I'm so tired. All right. That's the basics of REST API. What are you going to do? That's, oh, sorry, Postman. Of course, I'm trying here with a get. Now, there are different ways of making a request. Get is the most easy one, which is the one we're doing in our browser, but post is also another one. And of course, there we need a tool called Postman. If you install that, I will place it in the chat, also NodeMon, so you have it. Everything is in the resources as well in Canvas, but again, now you have it. So Postman, if you install it, it looks a bit like this. Let me check. This. Good afternoon. Okay. So I'm going to create a request. So this is actually a physical tool on my PC. Yeah, camera is screwed. So this is a physical tool on my PC. I do not need a browser. And this is to illustrate the fact that we're running a server and we do not need a website to do this. All right. Untitled request. So I'm going to make a GET request. What is my URL? Well, localhost on port 3000. Enter. Hello world. Perfect. I can test like this. Way easier. And I get back my data. All right. The only difference is you're going to have to make a post request. The difference you can find out yourself, and I will ask it in the next session, as in a couple of hours. So you can do app get and app post. Save data. Something like that, whatever. So if I want to test this one, save data, I can do this. Save data, send, and it says cannot get. How does it do that? Well, here you choose the type of request you are going to send. So if I do a post, send, and I get back my data. There's a difference between post and get that I will explain just before we start with the database theory later today. But I will let you start coding first and figure it out yourself because it's very important. So what are you going to do today? Oh, come on. So here we have, let me check. Resources and exercises. Of course, start with the resources. The slides are just informative during me talking, but eventually you just need the documentation for Express. So Express itself, I'm going to do the get started. Also in chat. Done. So, what do you need today? You will need Mongo Cloud Atlas. It's later. It's later for today. Don't do anything for the database yet. So you will be using the Express package. All documentation can be found here, and the getting started is there as well. NodeMon to install it yourself, and Postman to install it as well. That's all you need for now. Pluralsight, of course, if you're tired of my voice, which I completely understand, then in your own time, not this session, you can make a REST API with Pluralsight. REST API I really recommend because it does most of the things that I do and also uses Mongo. So a very good way of, it also explains what REST is. Also very good to see. Even if you don't know what REST is, at least look at like the 3 minutes or what is REST and the uniform interface, like these two. Very handy. Okay. That's everything for resources. For the exercise, you're going to do two things up until 4:30. So 4:30, we start again with another theory session, answer questions, stuff like that with databases. Up until then, you're just going to make sure you get an Express server to run. Again, I'm going to do my frustrating part in the beginning now because each session up until now for groups A and B, I have been waiting, of course, for questions. I don't get any questions during the session that I'm going to close the stream at 4:30. But then at 4:30, if I ask who has finished exercise 1, which is just the getting started module, I only get like half the people. Yeah, I had an issue. I didn't understand. Well, if you don't understand it, you don't ask me questions and I cannot help you. We're in this together. I have to teach you digitally, but I cannot drag you from your laptop, even though I would, through the cable and ask like, do you understand it? Just like shake you. So you need to take the responsibility of actually contacting me, working with students, which is the best case. Just take 2 or 3 friends, go into a Teams call, set your microphone up and just mute everybody and start working. If you have a question, unmute. It's like, hey guys, I tried this. It blocks. Do you have the same? And then hopefully one of them says, yeah, I got through it by doing this. And then you help each other. So work in small groups. If you don't have anyone to work with, just post something in the Web2 channel in Teams. And don't be afraid. We're all sociable enough. Okay. Again, exercise 1 is doing the getting started, and at the end, make sure you have, just like me, a working web service, just like me, with like a simple get request, the root, and like something that returns an object. And make sure that Postman can get that info. It looks easy, but of course you have to make it. I see a small mistake. No, Postman is software. It's not an npm install. As you can see at the bottom here of my Windows bar, it's actually an installed program. Very handy program. If you do any development later, very handy program. Exercise 2 is basically expanding that exercise. You're going to make 3 routes: API board games, API board game, and API save board game. 2 get and 1 post. And you're going to try and combine the logic from last week with this week. So you're going to copy the boardgames.json file over to the web server, just put it in the same folder. And then you're going to try to read that file and give back the data. That's it. You already have the code to read the data last session. And then copy paste that over in the correct route and you're good to go. Now, why board games again? You know the contents of this file. You have worked with this. So the barrier is now lower. So I hope that you don't struggle anymore on the contents of the file and figuring that out and actually focus on the Express part. All right? That's why. You only do until exercise 2. If exercise 2 is fully functional, let me know. I think I'm gonna have to do like challenges, and then the first person to, or the first 2 or 3 people who get the challenge, I shall give a reward or something like that. I think that might incentivize you guys to pick up the pace a bit. Any questions? Right, I don't see anything yet. I will start working on my own version of this. I will put myself in standby up until 14:45. So well, I'm standby until 14:45 for questions. Afterwards, a session will resume, a new link, so check in Teams at 16:30, and then we will handle databases. All right. After the databases explanation, I will also explain what the milestone 2 setup is. Good luck. there are some people who cannot run scripts on their own PC. In Windows, that's for NodeMon. Again, NodeMon is not mandatory, but it is handy. So open a PowerShell window with administrator. Do that first. So administrator, Windows, PowerShell, and then run as administrator. That's what you need to do. Okay, no problem. Same error. So run it as an administrator. Then it will open up this blue window. Okay. Now, what you're going to type in is you're going to allow packages from outside to be installed on your machine. You're going to tell Windows from, hey, it's cool, you're allowed to do it. So we're going to type in this. I'm going to type it also in chat. Only use things in chat, of course, once I told you what they do. So I'm going to set execution policy remote signed. Oh, fuck. Okay, remote signed, enter. And so you just type Y, yes, and then enter, and then you can go. Okay. That means now it is allowed to actually install NodeMon. So once this is done, you do npm install NodeMon -g. You install it, and then you refresh your terminal here to test it out. So kill the terminal, do it again, and let me know if it works. Alright, ik heb een bepaalde dringendheid waar ik ergens naartoe moet. Maar momenteel kunnen jullie verder. Om 4:30 ben ik sowieso terug voor de volgende opvolging. Als er zaken zijn, stel ze gerust in Teams, laat het mij weten en ik hoor jullie straks. Tot later.